Hello, everybody out there. It's Kirsten again from the German Tarot Association, and I'm here today with Travis McHenry. Hello, dear Travis. It's very nice that you took the time off. I think you have lunch break right now you're in New York right now?
Yes, in New York time zone.
Okay, that's really great that it's quite easier to talk to the east side of the states than to the west side from here. I have to say it's nicer times. So I tried to put up an interview with Bennabel Wen, and this is really difficult. She wrote a very nice review about your first two decks we're going to talk about. But before we start, um, everybody who's watching now from Germany, you probably don't know Travis so well because I don't think your decks have been published in German, right?
Not yet. We have tried. So Rockpool Publishing attends the Munich Book Fair, Frankfurt Book Fair every year,
Yeah.
and bring my decks, and they try to get German publishers interested. And so far, nobody has bought the rights to translate them into German.
Okay. So I have to do something about this because I'm at the book fair as well all the time.
Yes,
Perhaps I can convince our publisher to get some of your work done because I really like it. Though it is quite special, I have to say.
thank you.
Um, we wanted to focus today on occult tarot because obviously you do a lot of occult stuff. The first deck, which you produced, is now called Occult Tarot. And I thought before ah, I really have to say I have here the cover of the Hieronymus Bosch Tarot. It's really lovely the way it's done
Yeah,
with this shiny surface. And
yeah.
the occult tarot again looks really nice as well. I need to get this one too. So, yeah, before we talk about how you came to produce quite a lot of deck, I think you have produced 12 decks by now.
I just released my 14th deck, the Baphomet Tarot.
So you're going to have 21 decks, or what's the plan?
Got three more already in the works. So yeah,
Really?
I'm on track to do 21 decks.
Well, so it's always artists you're working with. You're not doing them the drawings. You're doing more the conception and the booklets to it, right?
Correct. I write everything. And the concept, of course. I do create the art for some of the decks. I have a lot of input into the art. So, like for example, for this Baphomet tarot, I designed everything myself. I hired an artist to do, actually two artists to do some of the outlining, like the penciling, and then I go in and color it myself. So like for the Vlad Dracula tarot, I did all the coloring in that deck myself, and modified some of the artwork. So it was just a little bit more to what my vision was than to what the artist created. So I've gotten really good at electronic design here in the past few years.
And you obviously are into dark subjects. So, how did this come about? How did you start to get an interest into in the occult? Um, Perhaps you can tell us a bit about this.
So I've sort of always been interested in occult type subjects. When I was young, I read a book called The Eyes of the Tarot, which is a fiction novel for young adults. And it's about a girl who finds a cursed deck of tarot cards and then goes on this adventure. So after that, I bought my first deck of tarot cards. I was about 13 years old. And but I didn't understand it. We didn't have the internet back then. I couldn't easily figure out how to use the deck. So I sort of put it aside, and but I was also discovering writing at that time. So I started writing short stories, and I tried to write a couple screenplays. And then as time went by, I got much older, of course, and I was going through a divorce, divorcing my wife, and it was like a spiritual conflicting time for me. And so I decided to teach myself how to read tarot again after 20 years of owning that one deck. And through that process, I questioned, well, who decided what every card means? Where did that come from? And pushing back the veil to figure out the origin of the meanings of the cards is actually how I came to want to design my own deck. So to me, people often ask, what does occult mean to me? That's what it means. It is revealing the hidden wisdom. It's not really hidden, it's just hard to find. The old grimoires, the old books of magic from the Renaissance and the medieval period, those are all in foreign languages. They're not in English. They're in French or Latin or German or Italian. And so the information is there. You just have to be willing to do the translation, find the old book, and figure out how it fits into the bigger picture of ceremonial magic. So for me to push back the veil and figure out what are the origins of tarot, who decided what the cards mean, that process was uncovering the occult meanings, the hidden true meanings behind the cards. And I became like obsessed with it, really, really. And that's why I keep creating new decks. Every year I release 2 new decks, but they're all based on really that same core theme of discovering what is currently unknown and then revealing it through the archetype of the 78 tarot cards.
So the first deck you bought when you were 13, was it a Wade Smith deck or
Yeah,
yeah?
guys.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I always tell people that when we have this deck in our hands, that it is just an interpretation of an interpretation. And yeah, it's quite a nice idea to go back to that. So did you study the Marseille type decks, or even further back the Visconti, Solabusca?
Yes, I have studied them all. So um, the Visconti tarot is really sort of where my heart is
Mm,
because it was the original. And you can push back further from the Visconti tarot to the old playing cards, old European playing cards from Spain, from Italy, from Portugal that predate the tarot. And if you study those carefully, you can see some of the influences that are going to be incorporated into tarot cards. But yes, those Visconti tarot decks, they're really the key to unlocking the tarot, to understanding the psychology that went into creating these cards and why they transitioned from playing cards to tarot, why the Italian noble families felt the need to do that.
So do you have an answer to this? Why they
I do.
because sorry, the Visconti cards were quite big, right? They were not really designed as playing cards, were
No.
they? And
Well, yes, they were designed to play a game for sure. But they were large like that because they were all hand painted and they were intended to be works of art. So, but the reason that the Visconti family wanted to make the game of tarot, you have to understand, they invented tarot. It did not exist before they
mm,
came up with it.
yeah.
Say, why did they do that? Well, the answer is actually pretty easy and kind of cool. So, in the late 1300s, early 1400s, playing cards were viewed as this terrible vice that was just pouring across Europe. All right. Everybody in Europe was like addicted to playing cards and gaming. And so the Visconti family were, of course, associated with the Catholic Church. So, how could they, good Catholics, be playing this horrible game of vice with their friends and family? So, to make playing cards spiritual and give it an aspect that the Catholic Church could accept and get behind, they added the trump cards, the 22 trump cards that all had these really elaborate scenes on them that were supposed to be spiritual in some way. So, for example, the death card reminds you that we're all going to die, everybody is mortal. The world card was the original version of the world card had like the Ancient of Days, God returning to judge everybody and all the souls flying up to heaven. That card reminded you we are all going to heaven if we've lived a good life and accepted Christ and all that stuff. So each of those triumphs is what they called the trump cards. Each of those triumphs had a specific moral lesson ingrained in the card. So as you were playing this game of Vice, you're seeing the trump cards and you're having a sort of spiritual moment to reflect and remember that life is not about gaming, it's about a higher purpose. So it's interesting to me that the whole game of tarot was created to make playing games a spiritual pursuit. And that's what we use tarot for today. Now the gaming aspect is gone and we just use it as a spiritual pursuit, not for Christianity, but just in our own, whatever your own personal spiritual tradition is. So I actually am coming out with a book. It's going to be released in September. It's called An Occult Guide to the Tarot. And I tell this whole story of the Viscontis, and I can show you step by step the development of the major arcana.
That's really interesting. I'm just trying to remember, because in Germany and in Austria and France, there still exists this game Tarot, which has also the trump cards, but they are not spiritual. They are everyday scenes. So the game still exists, and I'm trying to figure out whether this game is derived from the tarot or whether it is came from another side. So, but I'm mixed up in my head right now.
It's a really good question, and I don't even think I can answer that yet.
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell whether Tarot and the other associated European games came from tarot or if they were influenced by it in some way. I personally think it's a regional variation. The printers in Germany decided to just use different designs. They wanted
Yeah.
something every day. And remember, Catholicism at this time and Lutheranism or Protestantism, this was right around the period where they were starting to clash.
Yeah.
So German printers would have had a big incentive to remove any trace of Catholicism, or like, for example, the Pope card. We don't see those in the French decks that came after the Revolution. They started to change the imagery
Yeah.
to remove the Christianity aspects of it.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this book. We have to talk then again, please. And you said something else I wanted to talk about. I forgot. I will remember. Sorry. But with Conti, not sorry. I lost my trace there. I'm really annoyed because I had a very good thought and it's
Well,
gone
we
now.
were just talking about how I went back to explore the origins of tarot, and that was sort of how I came to create my own deck, by learning all those original meanings.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going then to occult tarot. Thank you. How did this then become occult? Because later the Tarot de Marseille was discovered in France as an occult deck, with all the connotations of it being derived from Egypt and stuff like that, which we know is not real. But how do you think this happened then?
Well, it's really easy, and we can boil it down to really one guy. Antoine Coeur de Gébelin was a French author, and he was really a historian first. And so he was writing this book about kind of the history of the world and the history of human civilization. And he had this idea that all aspects of human culture derive from one original source. So he had a friend who had written some pamphlets about tarot, and basically they collaborated to write a chapter on how the tarot was from ancient Egypt, and they tried to decipher the hieroglyphics to say, well, this has meaning in the tarot, but all that was nonsense. It was completely made up. Um, you know, it just had no basis in reality. However, he looked at the 22 cards of the major arcana and said, well, there's also 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And of course, the Hebrews were enslaved in ancient Egypt. So maybe this alphabet and these 22 trump cards carry some message from ancient Egypt through the Kabbalah and through the Hebrew mysticism, through Jewish mysticism. So they put that into the book, and it probably isn't true, but you know what? It fits. It fits really, really well. So later authors said, yeah, let's roll with this. Let's keep it going. Um, and so yeah, it does work. Actually, the system works pretty well if you connect the Kabbalah to the major arcana. But when the tarot was originally created, that was not in the minds of the people who made it at all.
So you said in the beginning that you wanted to look behind the veil, and interpret or find the real meaning of tarot. That's what I understood. So you believe then that the Visconti tarot has a deeper meaning, even though it was invented as a playing game?
I do. I really sincerely do believe that it was created with a higher intention, not necessarily to carry the secrets of ancient Egypt, but to imbue spirituality in the people who used it as a tool. Yes, I do believe that.
And still, they wanted to do it as a playing tool. So learning spirituality or occultism by playing, is it something like that?
Um, well, again, they weren't occultists, they were Catholics. So you
Mm.
would be learning Catholic spirituality through playing with these cards.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Oof, I really have to think about this. It's an interesting thought. Um, Coming back to your own work, so you are inspired by something like the Visconti tarot, but on the other hand, the cards you do they're much more. I don't have really the word. I think they're quite. Um, there are some pictures I really go like, ooh. Sometimes they're a bit shocking, I have to say. Um, is this what you understand by expressing occultism? I find it hard to phrase my sentences here.
So
But
for me, images are a way to convey ideas and concepts very quickly.
yeah,
Human beings are visual creatures. We see things and we instinctively just understand it. Um, and yeah, like the Hieronymus Bosch tarot has some really shocking images, but this is important to remember. Hieronymus Bosch was painting in the late 1400s, the same time period that the Visconti tarot was created. So his imagery is actually contemporary with what we see in those early Italian tarot decks.
I
My
can continue. I just show some of the pics while you're talking.
my concept in that deck was, if the tarot was designed in the Netherlands, in Holland, instead of in Italy, what would the cards have looked like? Well, the Habsburg king who ruled over the Netherlands at that time period would have hired an artist he liked to create the tarot cards. So you'll notice that a lot of the archetypes are very similar to what we see in the traditional Rider Waite or Visconti tarot or tarot of Marseille. You've got the devil, death, the magician, the I call him the wayfarer, but it's the fool, um, the empress. All these are actually found in Hieronymus Bosch's work because he was painting at a time when those archetypes were really common throughout all of Europe.
And what was the occult scene then? You say the Catholics worked occultic, occultic. Sorry, my English is sometimes a bit weird.
That's
Um, but how uh, did people express occult thoughts in tarot cards at this time? Because I'm still trying to figure out.
They
How,
didn't. They didn't.
yeah.
So I don't believe that the tarot was used for occult work at all until the 1700s. So at that period, when I say they're using it for spirituality, they're using it to become closer to Christ, like to become more Christ-like, not for occult purposes, not to work with astrological energies or Kabbalistic energies or anything like that. That practice didn't come until the 17 and 1800s.
Okay. Um, so perhaps I get a clearer thought of your way of occultism uh, when we discuss a bit your occult path. You already talked about how you came to do tarot or
Mhm.
got interested in tarot. Um, I also read that you have done some paranormal work, stuff like this.
Yeah,
So, can you tell
that
us a
was
bit about this?
yes. So when I was a teenager, I was really interested in like Bigfoot and UFOs and ghosts and things like that. So from 1996 until 2006, I led this 10-year project with a few other people to investigate like Bigfoot and UFO sightings and ghosts, haunted locations, and all those sort of things. And so for 10 years, that was really my focus. And it was, I mean, it was interesting to do that stuff, but I eventually realized like some questions probably won't be answered anytime soon. Um, I came up with theories about what ghosts are, what UFOs are, what Bigfoot is, but it's really hard to prove any of that stuff as either yes, it exists or no, it doesn't.
So it was kind of your personal X-Files time.
That's exactly right. Yes, I was Mulder. Yes, I was specially.
I can see that. And did you come across tarot work then? I read that you got in touch with some witches at the time.
Right. Yeah. And so this is what led me directly into ceremonial magic, witchcraft, and things like that. I was investigating this legend of a witch in my hometown, which is I come from a really small rural area, and this guy was a medical doctor who also led a coven of witches. And the legend was that he was really evil. So I started investigating him, investigating his life. And eventually the coven members found this out and reached out to me and said, "We want to set the record straight. He was not evil. He was like a practicing Wiccan more than anything else. But he also read Latin and French and German. So he had all these occult books of magic in his library. And that was also his focus. He came to occultism through his love of Latin. And I was just so fascinated by that. So they shared their rituals with me, they shared everything with me. And I went from being a non-believer to sort of a believer in like ceremonial magic, and that it can, even if it doesn't work through magical means, it is at least a positive spiritual practice for people.
So you have a training in ceremonial magic, and
Yes, but I've never been like initiated into a fraternity or a school like the Golden Dawn or anything like that.
okay. So, but it's quite useful for doing tarot cards, I guess, to know
It
about
is.
this at least. I also read, I said I wanted to talk a bit about your biography, that you were in the military. And It sounded a bit like you were a James Bond at one time, not only not only Boulder, but James Bond as well. Uh, how does this military years fit into yeah, into your occult being?
So when I joined the military, it was my dream to be like James Bond. But
Ah.
James Bond is a fictional character, he's not real. So my job was mostly analysis. And you'll I found that the skills I was using while I was in the Navy were exactly the same as the skills that I was using later when I started researching occult topics, because you have to be willing to ask a question and then figure out the answer, get down to the bottom of it. So, for example, if we had, if I saw that there was an indication that a white truck was outside of a US military base in Kuwait, it's my job to read that report and figure out who was in the white truck. What were they doing there? What's the possible damage that could be done? Were they a terrorist? Were they a foreign government agent? Who were they and why were they there? So, digging down, looking at all different sources of information that I had access to until I answered that question. And so that research ability and analytical ability was really my strength, and it still is today. It's my strength, but now I use it for the occult and understanding religious traditions and trying to figure out some of the mysteries that we have about tarot and other topics like that.
Yeah, now I can see a line in your life more clearly from my perspective, uh, because the research theme is quite big. You already told me that you are also were a recruiter, where you developed special skills to recruit good people. The paranormal work was also about research, and now you're trying to research what's behind the veil. So interesting. Yeah. So now I figure it out better. I'm a researcher myself, you know.
You really have to be to truly understand this work in general, any esoteric or metaphysical topic. You can rely on a guru to teach you, or you can get some teaching and then figure out the rest yourself. And I found it beneficial to do the research and do the work on my own, and then occasionally work with somebody who maybe knows different information than me. Um, and that's where my paths have crossed with Golden Dawn magicians over the years. I've never wanted to be initiated into the Golden Dawn, but working with them, performing rituals with them, sharing notes on stuff that we've researched really has opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I hope I've opened their eyes as well.
Is there still a very golden, very active Golden Dawn scene in the States?
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
very, very active. Yeah.
Okay, because I don't know much about the States in this regard. Um, Perhaps we can talk a bit about the way you then started to go into tarot. You already showed the occult tarot, which was your first tarot, and you started with Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
And Rockpool then came to you and said, "We want to do more work with you."
Yeah. They wanted to buy the decks immediately. I created the occult tarot first, and I had just launched the Kickstarter for the Angel Tarot, and I only had a sample deck. And I actually met Rockpool's publisher, Paul Dennett, at this like psychic expo in Los Angeles. And he saw the decks and asked me right away, "Do you have a publisher?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm just publishing them myself." And so we started the negotiations. And yeah, I've been with them for 5 years now.
It's really amazing. Perhaps we can have a look at the Angel Tarot because I don't have the Occult Tarot.
Yeah.
But the Angel Tarot came pretty close, pretty shortly afterwards. Yeah, I can show some pictures of it. Um, and everybody who's watching, if you have questions for Travis, please ask them. We don't get another chance so soon for asking him questions. Sorry for my stumbling. I'm really my head is not very clear these days. I think it has been a few very difficult weeks for the world. I'm a bit confused at present. So um, I told you before we went live that I'm using I have the Pocket Edition, which is really cute. Um, uh, I'm using it for my shows in the morning at present, and I just uh, did a workshop on angels because I really don't like the way people look at angels as only being there for us to protect us, blah de blah, and they always look very sweet and everything. And I really, when I saw your deck, I was like, yeah, he's painting angels in a way I can relate to, which I really like. But you based them on the Kabbalah, right?
Yes.
And how did you approach this? I mean, how did these images come to pass? How do you visualize these angels?
So there's really two different criteria that I use to figure out what the angels should look like. The first one was, what choir are they in? So, for example, the thrones choir those angels look a certain way. The cherubim all look a certain way. The seraphim look a certain way. And these are based on biblical descriptions. Um, and then, secondly, was, what does that angel do? Like, what's its function? Um, and tried to incorporate some of that. So, for example, an angel that has something to do with music or sound. There was just one there playing a flute. I've tried to find an image or create an image of the angel playing an instrument. Um, the most of the images in this deck are from public domain sources. So I went through and found old books with pictures of angels that would work. They weren't just random angels. They were angels that actually looked like what that angel probably would look like. And then others were like, for example, that Jalel angel. I hired a team of artists to draw a whole bunch of the cards. So if I couldn't really find an angel image that I liked, I had the artist draw what I thought it should look like. And the reason I hired multiple artists is because angels don't just come from one tradition. They're not just Christian or just Hebrew or just Islamic. They come from all of those different traditions. So I try to really respect that. And there's even an Orthodox angel in there. I don't remember which card it is, but I tried to have a whole different perspectives of the angels in that deck.
So they are painted from from different artists. Oh, I
Yes,
didn't realize this. I think they look all very well put together as one work of art.
thank you.
Interesting. So
That
how
was
did you?
that was the challenge for me, is to make them all feel cohesive, feel
Yeah.
like they belong together, yet they were all different.
That's really very lovely. But now you pointed it out, I can perhaps see differences. Interesting. How did you come up with the correspondences then to tarot?
Um, Yeah, that was a little bit more challenging. So I had a lot of options. I could have gone with an astrological correspondence. I could have just corresponded each card to the demon tarot. The occult tarot had demons in it, and each angel rules over a demon. And I thought, well, I could just do it that way. But the way that made the most sense to me was to assign each angel to a tarot card based on what that tarot card means and what does that angel do. So, for example, an angel that was mothering and nurturing, that might be the Empress card. An angel that brings death or signifies the end of things would be a good death card, and so on and so forth. An angel that brings lots of money and financial prosperity could be the Ace of Pentacles.
So, but you took the 72 angels which are sitting in the tree, basically.
Yes,
Um,
they're in the true life. Yes.
so this means that they can relate to the tarot. So it works out that they're not one card is has two angels or anything. So it fits quite nicely.
Right. Yeah. And
Interesting.
if you go through astrologically,
Uh,
that's what happens. Each of the minor arcana has two angels associated to it. The 36 cards of the minor arcana, without the court cards or the aces, it's just 36 cards. Each card would have two angels to it. And
72, yeah. Hmm.
so I couldn't do it that way. I had
Yeah,
to
yeah.
figure out something else to make them correspond appropriately. So every card had one angel.
Okay. So this sounds like an interesting puzzle to solve for a researcher.
It was. Yeah.
And these two decks were kind of, is it good to have, well, of course you will say yes, but do you think the occult deck and the angel deck need to be used together, or is it,
No, no. A lot of people do use them together. I personally use them together all the time. But, I'm really respectful of the fact that some people are just not comfortable working with the demons. Um, and, I've got a really good friend, Damien Eccles. He's a pretty famous author here in the US. And he does not use my demon cards at all. He only
really?
uses cards. And this guy has been through everything. Okay. He's had a really tough life. And but the angel cards just resonate perfectly with him. So that's all he uses. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can respect that.
Yeah, that's the angel cards resonate more with me than this other deck I wanted to show people as well. Um, I did unboxings of your decks, but not everybody has seen the decks. Um, so this is the uh, Magician, Martyr, and Madman Tarot. It's a
Yes.
very weird title. How did you conceive this one? Did you wake up
So
one day and said, "Woo"?
I actually wanted to write a book called Magicians, Martyrs, and Madmen since I was sort of a young kid. It's the title of a fictional book. It's in a movie, Ghostbusters 2.
Oh,
It's mentioned just in passing. And I thought that would be a really cool book where you could go and read biographies about all these people from history who had something to do with magic. And in the in the process of starting to write the book, I thought, wait a minute, why don't I make a tarot deck? I'm going to put 78 people in the book anyways. I might as well find a way to relate them to principles of the tarot. And again, I said, what's the core message behind this person's life? Um, and how could that relate to a tarot card? So Ivan the Terrible, right there. He could have been a lot of different cards, but he murdered his son by accident. He was really sorry he did it. He was like a fit of rage. He killed his son. And I thought, that's a broken heart, which would be the Three of Swords. So it worked perfectly for that. Um, and that's what I tried to do for every single card. Find a person who had something to do. And Ivan the Terrible isn't really a magician, but he is a madman. He is crazy. So some of these people have something to do with magic, and others are just sort of spiritual. They're martyrs, and then some are just crazy. They're killers.
in the introduction, you kind of say that it's good to do a reading with these cards when you feel really shitty because other people have more shit to carry. Sorry about my
That
language, but
No, that's exactly right. If things are tough or you're having a really hard time, you can go through this deck and find someone who had a more difficult time. Like the Two of Pentacles there, Anne Odile Disdebar. She was like a con woman, and she was always struggling for money, but she always found it. She always found someone she could pull a couple of dollars out of, and even though she got arrested once, she ended up dying having quite a bit of money. So little things like that. You look at Joan of Arc. Joan of
mm,
Arc was persecuted for almost her whole, like, her life was pretty short, and the Catholic Church was constantly trying to get her and burn her at the stake. And yet she is now a hero, a champion of the Catholic Church. So you
Oh,
can
I
look at
heard
her like,
about this one. That was when they went, they ate each other somehow.
Five
Yeah.
of Pentacles, the Donner Party,
Oof.
and also just so people understand, I wasn't just trying to exploit tragedies. I went to the site where the Donner Party happened, where that whole where the party was stranded and they were stuck in the mountains over the winter. I actually went there and walked around the sites where they lived and where they died. So to get that spiritual energy, that real connection with the people. I did that for many, many people in this deck.
But I really like I like the deck actually, and I got inspired by it by researching some people out of the deck as well. But I can't imagine having a customer in front of me and do a tarot reading with them. So, uh, do you do readings for people with your decks?
Absolutely, I do. So imagine, I know it sounds a little bit morbid to use this deck for somebody else, but imagine you're doing a reading for them and the Donner Party is in the past position, and let's say Agatha of Sicily is in the future position. Okay, well, the Donner Party is somebody who's got nothing. They're totally broke. Their life is in shambles. Agatha of Sicily went through a period of torment, was true to herself, and came out the other side a saint, literally a saint. So a customer can understand that. They can say, okay, I'm in a bad situation now. I'm going to go through the torment. And then on the other side of this, I'm going to be prosperous and everything's going to be good.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking, what's if it had been put the other way around? You finish reading with the Donner Party. I would
um,
take this card out of my readings, I think. So I think in Germany we don't know so much about this story, so it's okay. I could always tell them
there,
some
there
other
are quite a
things.
few. There are quite a few German people in that deck, though.
Yeah,
Sort of organic people in that deck.
yeah. I really like the aesthetics of the deck, though. And we already mentioned the Hieronymus Bosch deck, but I think it's from the style, it's a bit similar.
Mhm.
It's, don't you think? Is it the same artists here, or do you always
No,
choose a different artist for your decks?
Not always. I've worked with the same artist several times, but so that Magicians, Martyrs, and Madmen was illustrated by they're all digital paintings. They were done by a girl, Helena Goldberg. She is actually Venezuelan, and with the money I paid her to do that deck, she was able to get out of Venezuela when the country was like collapsing. So I helped her out a lot.
Wow.
But yeah, she did all 78 cards. It took us 2 years to go through all those images.
And this one, is it just Bosch
That's original.
paintings?
Yeah, they're all original Bosch paintings, but this is where my skill comes in. I
Uh-huh.
went through and had to sort of digitally extend the paintings or isolate those images to remove the extraneous stuff and just make it one little scene um, that would fit on that particular card. So, like for example, in the Mistress of Terror, that card, there was a whole bunch of stuff behind that woman, behind the mistress, that I had to remove all of that. And her hat, I actually had to build out her hat and reconstruct it because it's obscured in the original painting.
So I read that there are not so many pictures of Hieronymus Bosch. I think only 24 or 25 pictures left, or
Right,
perhaps he didn't paint more because he was quite rich. I think he didn't have to live on paintings.
right.
But what I didn't know was that his horrible images were really appreciated during his time. People liked to look at them a lot.
Yeah,
So perhaps it's the same fascination you have, or people have when they look at this tarot deck. Um,
absolutely. Yeah. Because every image isn't just made to be shocking. Every image has some kind of a moral lesson in it. You look at the King of Books there. He is, look at how that cape is completely obstructing any part of him except for just a little bit of his head. So that's St. Anthony. He's denying the pleasures of the body. He's completely denying his body any physical pleasure because he wants to stay close to God. So he's got his intellect and his Bible in front of him, and that's all he's got. So by drawing that huge black cape, it's illustrating that if you really want to be holy, you're going to have to deny your body.
Wow. But this is not from the Garden of Earthly Delights, right? I have to
No,
confess,
that
I
one's
only know this picture of Bosch.
so Bosch has got quite a few different paintings, but he
Uh,
painted Temptation of Saint Anthony, like 3 or 4 different versions of it. So yeah,
I just read that they found a new Bosch, and that might be a self-portrait of him, but I haven't
yeah.
looked into this yet. Yeah, it's really interesting. Um, well, I have to say, I don't think I have any more questions at present right now because you gave me a lot to think about. Um, do you have anything, any stuff you want to tell us Germans?
Uh,
How we can get your decks, or
uh,
what
I
we.
don't know what the easiest way to get them in Germany is. Amazon is what I usually recommend to people, but sometimes they can't actually access that. My website, I've got a website, bloodstone.info is where I sell my tarot cards, but somebody told me they can't access that in Germany. So I don't know what that's all about, but you can
Yeah.
try bloodstone.info is the name of my website. So you can buy decks directly from me. But I don't have
No, you
everything
can
on.
access it, no problem.
Oh, okay, good,
I'm
good.
there.
So yeah, so that's probably the best bet. You can buy them directly from me. If you buy a book, I'll autograph it for you.
Mhm.
Um, and all my new first edition decks get released on that website first, and then after they sell out, Rockpool will start selling their what I call the mass market edition.
That's um, a good deal you made there.
It's a very good deal.
Yeah, I came from Rockpool to you because I asked them whom I should interview, and they said your name first, so you seem to be very high ranking there. Um,
Well, I am. At one time I was their top selling author. I think I bumped down to number 2 or 3 now, but I'm still one of their top authors. Yes,
okay. So, are you going to the Frankfurt Fair at one point?
I was just in Germany a few years ago, Berlin and Munich, and I was going to go to the Frankfurt Fair. I think last year or the year before, but I was at my house in Brazil. I have a place in Sao Paulo, and so I couldn't make it. But yeah, I would love to come to the Frankfurt Fair at some point in the future.
Okay. Yeah, so there are no questions. Everybody is stunned from what you were saying and has to think other people have headaches because of your images. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Some of them are a bit scared because of demons and stuff. Um,
Right.
but I think it's good to have this side of the tarot as well. It's not all uh, light and bright. And that's one question I wanted to ask you. Um, we are in a time right now where tarot is more, when you go on Instagram or whatever, it's always like magic and lighthearted and everybody can do it and blah 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 happiness. And your work seems to go into a different direction. So, what do you think? Does occult tarot um, has a chance to survive, or will we in a few years use it only as a conversational thing at a party?
Well, I'll tell you what, I started this journey in creating tarot cards 8 years ago. Okay. And my decks are still selling like crazy. So, because Yes, they seem dark, but there's actually a channel of light coming through them. Even the occult tarot, which works with demons that people are sort of afraid of, the people who use that deck, it's almost like leading them out of the darkness. Really, it is in their own lives. It's almost like leading them into a light of some kind and giving them a little bit of hope at the end of the tunnel. Um, because the occult tarot actually isn't dark at all. People think it is, but it really isn't. No more so than the Rider Waite tarot. You know, you get the Devil card or the Tower or the Death, everybody gets a little scared, or the Ten of Swords. But it's no darker than that deck.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, Travis. It was really a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes,
Told you in the beginning I was nervous because you have done so much, but you're a really nice person to chat to. Thank you very
thank you.
much.
Thank you. It was great speaking with you. Thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah, and once your book is out, we have to talk again if you find the time. I would really like to do that. Is it going? Sorry, is this going to be published on your site as well, or is it going to Rockpool?
Will have I will have some copies, but it's a Rockpool book, so there it's going to be it'll be everywhere. Yeah, they're
Okay.
doing global distribution of it. It's a big, a lot of information, tons of pictures, and I break down the entire major arcana card by card and the minor arcana card by card and show you the historical evolution of the deck, how it went from simple playing cards all the way to the tarot that we know today.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is going to be something I'm very interested in. And people say thank you to you. And I think everybody was very enlightened by your words. And now let's go back into our work day. Thank you very much, Travis. Yeah. Do you have anything else to say? Otherwise, I'm going to switch it off. I'm very bad with ending stuff. Okay.
Auf
Okay.
Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen und wir machen hier gleich weiter um 20:30 Uhr, ne? Still have a talk on Houdini after that, so bye.